When I grew up, it was very drug infested. You know, I would see dope lines down the block, people shooting up everywhere. There was not too many avenues for me to make money.
So the first time you got arrested, you was 13 years old?
13 for 2 nickel bags. And then I locked up again when I was 15 for pills and other shit. And then I got locked up again at 19, and then I got locked up again at, between 20 to 23. Total of 6 years in prison.
The difficulties the challenges coming back home, we don't really have people willing to help us out. And for you to actually not only create this movement that you only hire formerly incarcerated individuals, I want to know, what happened to you that made you say, you know what, I'm gonna come home and this is what I'm gonna do now?
We already know the system was built for a reason. The system was built for us to go back. So how do we prevent that from happening? Is through communication and more information to our people that's out there. That's how we disrupt the system.
Being a predicate felon, right? You were a 2-time offender like myself. What were some of those challenges and how were you able to overcome them?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is
Welcome to the Off the Count podcast. I'm your host, Jason Abreu, founder of Made Up North, a movement built on freedom, second chances, and redemption. I could have not picked a better guest than to kick off my journey than the person I have here with me, a good friend, a brother, someone I consider a mentor, Coss Marte. Coss, thank you, brother, for the opportunity.
You already know. Welcome, man.
It's a blessing. Thank you for allowing me to come over here to your space and kick off this journey with you as my first guest. You've been someone who's had a major motivation and has inspired me tremendously with all the work that I do. So I thank you for this opportunity.
No, I appreciate you, bro.
I think it's no surprise that I know your story. I know your story to the fullest extent. A lot of people know your story, but you have such a unique, powerful, and impactful story that I feel we need to continue highlighting it, because through your story, you fulfill the whole purpose of my movement, which is to give hope, provide resources, and give real guidance to those coming home so that they can make a successful transition back to society.
Absolutely.
And hopefully avoid the same trap that we fell into, which is recidivism. So, before we get into Mr. Coss Marte, the CEO, the founder of ConBody, right here in your beautiful place, along with ConBody, I want to get into, briefly, Coss Marte growing up, the younger Coss, your upbringing, your family, your run-ins with the law, and any key influences that you could think had an influence that led you down that wrong path and down the street life. If we could briefly just get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up 3 blocks away from here. My mom still has rent control down the block. You know what I mean? So it was a totally different neighborhood. I was explaining to somebody earlier, I was like, yo, this was all Dominican on this side and then Puerto Rican on above, in the Ave,
Yeah.
And we were small, but this was and it was mixed, it was a lot of Puerto Rican, Dominican, but when I grew up, it was, again, primarily Dominican, and it was very drug infested. I would see dope lines down the block, people shooting up everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was the people that I saw as successful was the people that were standing in front of that line, serving these people that were rocking the chains, that were rocking the dope-ass jackets that they were buying and furs from Orchard Street, you know what I mean, and leathers and stuff like that, So it was a different time to see that. And then,
that just caught your attention right away, right?
Well, there was not too many avenues where I saw that was realistically attainable for me to make money, I've worked a whole bunch of jobs, but to really make money, I feel like jobs are a journey onto brokenness.
Cool.
We need to create, side hustles, entrepreneurship, and, figure it out, because we can't stick just to the same system.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely know your story. I first got familiarized with your story when I first came out back in 2019. I had actually reached out to you back then, and as always, willing to help out. You actually invited me to your studio, but unfortunately, I ended up reoffending. I went back away, but when I came out, we actually connected. And one thing, that really stands out to me about you, about your incredible journey that you have had so far, is that when you go to your profile, any social media profile, you see in your description helping formerly incarcerated individuals. And that's something that really, really I took to heart, because that's kind of what I'm doing with my movement. It's like, the difficulties, the challenges coming back home. We don't really have a sense of people willing to help us out. And for you to actually not only create, this movement, ConBody, along with ConBud, and one of its core principles being that you only hire, predominantly formerly incarcerated individuals. I think that's something incredible, and I want to know, like, what does that mean to you? Like, what made,
that's for me to hear that from you is just the trickle effect that, this thing is getting bigger because we cannot stop helping each other and guiding each other on the positive way and the right track.
Of course.
Because we already know the system was built for a reason. The system was built for us to go back. So how do we prevent that from happening is through communication and more information to our people that's out there, and that's how we disrupt the system, So if we could do more of that and figure it out and like actually get people attainable resources, jobs, whatever they need at that moment, like that's the key. We already see the stats. If somebody's already employed, when they come out, it goes from 56% in New York State all the way down to 34%.
Yeah.
So we already know there's a saving grace. What if that person graduates from college?
Mm-hmm.
It's 1% recidivism rate.
Yeah.
So why don't we educate our people and then employ our people?
Yeah, and it's, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's really my movement, what it's really big on, because I fell into the trap of recidivism. And I know, and we're going to get into that in a few. I know one of the few times we have spoken before, you had mentioned to me, like, through what you do and how you're able to facilitate jobs to guys coming home, everyone who does work for you, actually you have a recidivism rate of 0, you told me, right? Like, no one ends up reoffending.
No, nobody has been charged.
Wow.
And convicted. We actually had one individual that had an issue with parole, but we beat it. And we always have issues with some sort of system.
Yeah.
But when we go to those hearings and they get 5,000 petitions and letters from our people, and they're like, yeah, we made a mistake.
And they see Coss Marte standing on business. Yeah.
There's collateral consequences that people don't understand.
Yeah.
Before we were just talking about, like, me and you hanging out while we were on parole, we getting locked up.
Yeah, of course.
It was not
allowed, yeah.
You get violated for bullshit like that. Or you get a slap on the wrist and be like, yo, next time is over. And now you're like, yo, I can't even see the people that I need to connect with. So, I think that's just more of like why the system was built that way.
Yeah.
So it could just continuously recidivate the people returning back into society.
Of course, I agree, because I always see and I witnessed it firsthand when I went back. It's like, it's simple, as long as we keep going back and reoffending, we are to them what's called job security. As long as we keep going in, they're going to have a job. And, through your movement and through my movement, I think that's the cycle that we're trying to break.
Especially during this time, like they're building more prisons now.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, they building one around here, right? Cause I think downtown, like by Chinatown or something.
So the tallest jail in the world is going to be down here.
Yeah,
40 stories.
I was seeing that.
So my brother and I, we protested against it.
Okay.
And we took them to court against
Really?
it. We beat them the first time because it was a sacred land by Native Americans and they had to ask the chief for permission.
Look at that. That's good to know. I didn't even know that.
But they were going to build it above the marriage courts there.
Okay.
And so they didn't know what to do. So what they did was they applied again to build on top of the tombs. And so now that's why they closed down the tombs here.
Yeah.
And they're building that straight up here.
I see.
So we couldn't beat them in court because that was the already existing land that they were already using for the jail.
Got it.
So they're just building another 40 stories right there.
Yeah.
Plus the Rikers Island section that they're going to have 20,000 more immigrant beds in Rikers Island. So they're going to
get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, people don't even know they're building a whole section. So the deal with Eric Adams this is, he was going to get locked up. And so in order for him not to get locked up, he had to give up something. And so here's the island that could take you right to the airport in JFK and deport you right away.
Wow. I didn't even know that. That's good to know that. And I'm happy you sharing that, so the listeners can actually be aware with that, Coss. So I know we was getting into your upbringing, just to take it back to that. So what kind of influence did that have on you, like, that actually led you to go down the wrong path? Like, what was your first intervention that you would say with the law?
The first time, I don't know, I would say like getting caught up with 2 bags of weed right here down the block. But, before that, just having the cops come to us while we kids on the corner, like, just giving us the pela,
harassing for no reason, yeah.
Hey, blah, 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 get out of here, run out of here. Or, and so we already having that perception of like, they're the ops, they're the enemy.
Yeah.
I'm not Jack. I'm not Jack. They, it's like cops against robbers, And so I already had that mentality, even when I got arrested for the actual first time at 13 years old.
So the first time you got arrested, you was 13 years old?
13 for 2 nickel bags.
So you didn't do time. They let you out,
right?
They let me
out. But it was a slap on the wrist. And then I got locked up again when I was a kid. And so they were like, when I was 15, for pills and other shit,
Yeah.
And then I got locked up again at 19. Multiple times, like 5 times. And then I got locked up again at, between 20 to 23, small little things like that. But I did a bid, a total of 6 years in prison.
All right. So you did 1 state bid then, Coss, or
2 state bids?
2. Yeah. And it was in throughout your second incarceration, actually, this was like, I want to say, your turning point, right? Where like you said enough, and that's something that, like I said, I want to highlight, because I want the listeners, those guys coming home, to see, like, it's possible you could come home and you're going to be faced with challenges, because I know the story behind, ConBody. You had to put in that work and you didn't stop. When things weren't going your way, you kept pushing through. And that's what I want to really, motivate these guys, so they could see, listen, whatever vision comes to you in there, similar to what I'm doing now, Made Up North, this vision came to me in 2021 when I was all the way up in Wyoming Correctional Facility. And it's no surprise. I came out here, I was executing, but sure enough, I was hit with challenges all across the board. You helped me with one of those challenges.
But you were
remember
documenting your whole journey, because it was so real.
Yeah.
Like here's you trying to readapt back into society.
Exactly,
and being a realistic example of how the system is going right against you for no particular crazy reason.
And I got penalized for that.
You got penalized.
Yeah, I remember, because, I remember a week before that, cause like I said, we already had, communicated, we've been in contact, whatnot, and you had invited me to come to your studio. And I remember when this happened, I automatically called my girl. I'm like, yo, please reach out to Coss, tell him what's happening. And again, I've said it before, but I want to say it on my show, Coss, thank you for that time. You was there present throughout that whole ordeal. You even asked us if we needed any help, if you wanted us to make any phone calls, and that's something I'll never forget. But the point I'm making is that, I had a choice to make. Am I going to quit, or I'm going to keep on with this? And I kept on, and that's something that I know. It wasn't easy for you to bring ConBody from the bottom up. This was a vision that came to you.
Still not easy.
And I want to know, I want you to tell the listeners, how was ConBody, how did this come about, this vision, while you were incarcerated? What happened to you that made you say, you know what, I'm going to come home and this is what I'm going to do now?
So first of all, there's SHOC. For those people that know up north, SHOC is ex-Marines turned correctional officers, and screaming and boot camp and all this shit. And I did that 3 times, so went to Green and all state prisons and all that shit. But like over there, I learned, how to work out pretty much, and the way that the technique that they use. So I lost over 70 pounds in 6 months while I was locked up, but I took that technique, and also the factor that when we work out in prison as inmates, as people, we go hard. It's like back to back. We don't, it's you doing your set of push-ups, I'm going next.
Yeah.
And so
they are playing games over there.
And so that's what I try to implement over here. So that's similar. That's the unique taste of ConBody. And for those who have never tried it,
Man, listen,
let me know.
I was just gonna say that. You guys get busy, man. You pull my calls. I remember the first time I came to finally meet you, and it was like, we had a little workout. I was in there like ready to tap out. You put me on blast. You like, come on, Jay, what you doing back there, man? Pick it up, man.
Hiding.
Yeah. So it's definitely like, it's global. I seen you on the Ellen show, like all over, and a lot of people, have a lot of appreciation for this because, it's like some people can't make it to a gym per se, and some people don't like working out with weights. And here you develop this boot camp prison style fitness, which gives people the opportunity to get a great intense workout. I could definitely vouch for that. So, that's something great. How was it for you trying to build that up when you came out here, though, Coss? Like, were people trying to give you opportunities or not really?
No, we were. So I just told somebody we were the first fitness studio down here. There was nothing here. There was a yoga studio, and there was no boot camp, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And so I brought that down to the basement right here on the same corner on Blooming.
That's where I went the first time I came. Yeah.
And so there, I just was doing my thing, and that blew up. And then I moved over here, and then I moved over here. But it was, still a journey. It's still a cycle where you never know where it's gonna take you. And I feel like I've been able to travel around the world twice because of this, and impact so many people in so many different prisons across the world.
Worldwide, man. Worldwide. Like, I say it, I heard your story, Coss, back in 2019. And when I reoffended, when I was back in Rikers, they were actually giving tablets out at the moment. And in this tablet, they had this little segment for this show called Startup, So, and there, I'm even getting goosebumps hearing this because, like I said, I knew your story, but I didn't really know the full extent, of how motivating and inspirational this story is. Like, I heard how you took this idea, nothing, and made it into something. How you went to Vegas and won a $50 on a check and all that. Like, and that's, believe it or not, when I started hearing this, that's what clicked in my mind. I'm like, wow, this guy, I don't know him personally yet, but I'm going to make it my business to go out there and connect with him. And he's someone that I'm definitely going to look for mentorship and guidance because you're proven fact, man, that you could come out here and, you could flip the script. You could do things different. You are the perfect example. You exemplify the foundation of my movement in its entirety. You are what it means to be off the count and making it count.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I think it's a lot more to do, and I still feel like it's just the infancy of where we're at right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there needs to be, we need to change the whole system, and it's going to be a difficult, movement especially in the time that we're living in right now,
I agree. And we see all the things that continue to happen in the system. And I know that's something that you push through your movement, through your platforms, for systemic change, Coss. And that's something that I'm really trying to push also, like we just seen sadly what happened with Robert Brooks. And that's something that was actually nothing that was regular for us.
That's common. Yeah, where people get, strapped down to a chair and then get crazy.
Of course,
Or, one time, bro, this shit is crazy, man.
Yeah, please talk to, I want to hear this.
We were in the spot and, in the dorm area, in the day room area. And so some CEO said something slick to one of the guys, and the dude, said something slick back, and he said, yo, get the fuck on the board, blah, blah, blah. Everybody was there. This nigga got on the wall. He jerked a little bit or whatever. What was that for? Pop, 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 pop. Just hit him with batons and all that shit, And he hit the alarm. And in seconds, everybody just came in.
They pulled that button, it was over, you know?
Remember the sergeant on duty that night, he fucking punched the officer. He was like, there's your excuse, you know? He punched you in the face. And he was bleeding. The officer was like, fuck, you know?
That's why I was so outraged when that situation
crazy.
happened.
It's crazy.
I put a video out there to try to bring awareness because, like I said, we live that on a daily basis. It's like, I always thought of it like this, you know, because when we were going to wreck, they would prowl on us so they could make us their wreck. If you get what I'm saying, you know, just fucking with us for no reason, you know. And I think, we have to keep pushing for change. And I think, you know, with more Coss Martes, more Jason Abreu, more individuals coming together, formerly incarcerated individuals, one step, one day at a time, we could definitely get somewhere and continue to implement a lot of changes. Like I see firsthand, I've seen you in Albany up there, you know, giving, you know, your testimonies or whatnot and putting a lot of things in action, you know, to advocate for change. So that's something, you know, that obviously I appreciate. I'm sure all formerly incarcerated individuals.
Even on a federal level, you know, on the banking side, I was pushing for, I got to testify in front of Congress, you know, to let them on the banking committee.
Really?
To really change banking for us.
Okay.
Because we were never allowed, you know, when we had those PPP loans and COVID and all that stuff, we were not allowed to tap into those loans because you had to have a certain amount of time out of the system. And so I had like 5 years off parole. 5 year, and so I met, it was like, nope.
Yeah.
And so then I remember the Five Ventures and a couple other organizations wrote a direct letter to Congress and was like, yo, this thing needs to be changed, you know? And so they changed that to like a year and a half.
So they weren't trying to give you no loans or nothing then,
But they did afterwards, you know, because they changed that from 5 to like 18 months. But it's like, yo, I came home. I did my time.
That's crazy, man.
I'm just trying to do something right now. Why do I have to wait for my start line? You know, when I already know I'm already changed.
I'm hearing this, you know, and I'm saying it's crazy because it reminds me when I was in work release, you know, like I would see dudes lose their program and get sent back up north to do 18, 20 months, basically finish off their whole bid if they were found with a debit card. Like similar situation, they didn't want us having no bank account, no nothing. They didn't even want us carrying an ID. You know, they just wanted us to carry that big bright ID that specifically said inmate work release, which I'm going to tell you firsthand, like the whole purpose of work release is, so you could, you know, work and be able to spend time with your loved ones. But you know how difficult it becomes trying to get a job with an ID like that? You know?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy, man. So you got ConBody set up and like I said, definitely off the count, making it count. You definitely off the count and truly making it count in many ways. You didn't stop at ConBody. You actually ventured off and now you have ConBody at 3 major locations. So how do you feel being in the legal cannabis business, a pioneer at that, Coss, in a business that used to criminalize us? How do you feel, you know, like being a part of that now?
It feels crazy to me, you know, because like I said, 3 blocks away, I got locked up for 2 nickel bags.
Yeah.
Now I'm over here
selling them
legally. Main Street, you know, what a crazier, you can't get on a crazier corner than this.
Yeah.
You know, on the Lower East Side. So like, it feels like a dream, you know, but it's not easy. It's a lot of regulations that I got to deal with. I got a crazy amount of people that I'm employing, you know, the amount of rent that I'm paying for both top and bottom, you know, is 47.
I know, man. And your place is beautiful, man. I'm going after this interview right now to pick something up, but
47,000, you know, like that. I gotta make it work. I gotta make it work.
You know, and it's, you know, I'm glad you actually brought that up, you know, because a lot of people, I always say, they see the glory, but they don't see the full story. They want to reap the benefits, but they don't know what it is to put in the work. And I'm saying that to say this. As I got here today to do this interview, I found you outside, getting busy, getting active with one of your, you know, employees, giving out flyers, like still hustling, still working, still pushing your movement, promoting ConBody, promoting ConBud. And that's something, you know, that is important to highlight so the listeners out there can hear, like, when you come out here, whatever you want to do, it could get done. But you have to remind yourself each and every day, you got to wake up and execute.
Yeah.
You know?
No, and I hit the streets, you know, and I think that's what I'm best at. And so I put myself in that position, you know, marketing, putting myself in front of the camera, and then outside in the streets. And I feel like me personally, when I'm outside in the streets, I'm going to beat the internet.
Okay.
You know, because we could say, hey, I'm going to post a nice video, but what's the actual return on that?
Nah, you're right.
What's the return on me stopping somebody in the street and having a conversation and making them feel something, or making them do something, or change something, or whatever?
Absolutely.
You know? Or just simply connecting, you know, is way more powerful for me.
No, I agree.
And I love the resource that we could just tap into so many people at once, because we need it.
I agree, you know, because that actually takes me back to my old days when I used to promote. When I started promoting, I was big on the hand-to-hand, you know, giving out flyers, putting up posters. You know, it's like you get that more of an interaction, like you just said, you know. So definitely, you know, that's the point I want to make out there. Anyone listening to this, you know, whether they're in a cell, in transition, or out here just trying to find a way, listen, it's never too late to change the script. You're looking at two individuals right now who are living proof of that. You just got to be, you know, willing to put in the work. And I just wanted to, you know, ask, Coss, as we continue real quick, like, what would you say were your biggest challenges when you came out here after prison? Coming home now, you know, being a predicate felon, right? You were a 2-time offender like myself. Like, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
3-time.
3-time.
Because of the city.
Yeah. What were some of those challenges, and how were you able to overcome them? So if anyone listening out there could hear this and they could, you know, take some notes and
I mean, I think the biggest thing is I knew I changed when I asked for help. You know, I knew I changed when I asked for help.
Wow.
Because when I came home, all those other times, I was like, I'm not going to no program. You crazy? But
block, straight to the block,
$40 to be in wherever? Nah, you crazy? I make that thing in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to waste my time. So for me, time is money. And so just humbling myself and just saying like, yo, I need help. I went straight to Fortune Society. I sat through their 2-week workshop, you know, on just sitting there listening. Then I did their internship program. While I was doing the internship program, right before that, we went to another program called Career Gear, where they gave me a suit and a tie, you know, for joining this program. And it was like a nice $1,000 theory suit. It was secondhand, but I took it, you know, and they were like, yo, if you want more dope shit like this, come to our weekly things. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to be here every week. This is part of the schedule. I'm going to Fortune, I'm doing this. Now, next, what I do, I start doing a internship with Goodwill. And so Goodwill took me on the Fortune Society bucket, and I was just doing super clerical work. I'm going there with a suit. Nobody knew I was locked up. You know, I was just went in there. I'm doing a paid internship. They have this branch opening up in Brooklyn. I was working from here. I was working in South Jamaica. I was in Jamaica. I was taking the J train to almost the last stop. Yeah. You know, from here. Every morning, on time, before time, you know, just doing the shit. And at the same time, I'm also doing my fitness shit in the park, you know? So I'm going through all these programs, hustling for all this shit. So whatever it is, I understood that I needed help, and I needed to continue asking for help, you know, because when we come home, we like, yo, I got that. And that's where I failed, you know? That's where I failed.
You know, so it was basically like a big shift in your mindset overall, you would say, you know, like this time you said, I'm going to ask for help.
And I don't know, I love materialistic things, but I don't care about them anymore. You know, I don't really care about them. You know, I really feel like I got everything I need. You know, I got everything I need.
Saying that, you know, Coss, and you see my reaction, because just the other day, I always have conversations with my girl, and I always tell her that. I'm like, yo, babe, you know, when I get to where I'm going with this journey, I outgrew all of that too, Coss. You know, back then, we hustling, we want the finest things, the best clothes, the hottest kicks, the jewelry, everything. And now I've gotten to this level where I'm good, man. Get me some Fabletic workout pants, a t-shirt, and I'm good, man. You know, like, I don't care about none of that, you know? So it's a beautiful thing to see that, you know, we have that similarity, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what is important, because when you come home, let's say $40 in a bus ticket, we know that journey, you know, like, oh, that's it. This is what's given to you. Go back to society. What do you do next?
Yeah.
You know, food stamps, all the shit you got to go through. But if you understand that it's going to be, if you continue doing the righteous thing, things are going to work out, you know? If you go out there trying to hurt people again and doing crazy shit,
yeah,
it's gonna end up bad.
That's one thing I learned, you know. If you're gonna move righteous, you gotta move righteous the whole way, you know, cause you can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like, I can't be here, you know, having this interview with you, with my movement, which I know, you know, its main purpose is to help guys make that successful transition, help them break free from that cycle-recidivism, bring awareness and educate the youth. But then once I leave here, get back to the block. You know, I had to learn myself, like, I'm either gonna be all in, or I'm not gonna do it, you know. And that's a choice that I made. And I said, you know, I have a 14-year-old, I have a baby girl on the way, which I just shared with you. So seeing what you did firsthand definitely, you know, inspired me to everything I'm doing today. Because you showed me that it's possible to come home, flip the script, and make it happen. And I thank you for that, Coss.
Yeah,
for real, man.
bro.
For real, man.
Know.
You know, I'm not going to take too much of your time. I know you're very busy. And again, I thank you.
I appreciate you, man, doing the good work.
I just want to, you know, Coss, ask you one last thing. Like, for our youth, you know, that's one thing. Right now, we're living in a day and age where they're really going down the wrong path. You know, they're seeing what they see on social media, what they hear the rappers rap about, and it's, you know, it's sad out there. So if there's a few pointers, you know, cause if you could, looking into the camera, any youth out there that could hear this, that might think that the street life is the way, that's the way to win out here, Coss Marte, firsthand, can you please share your words of wisdom and drop the jewels for them? That might help them avoid.
I think simply just the mathematics. I want to break down, you know, the fact that if you start doing anything incorrectly and you get caught up and you end up, you know, let's say 5-year bid, you know, what is that? You know, let's say you commit a crime, you rob $5,000, you know, and they give you 5 years, right? And you get a job for even $30,000 an hour, you know, that's $150,000, right? Was it even worth it? 5 years of your life, you know, just think about it. You know, it just doesn't make any sense to make that dumb decision, which is going to end you up in the system. And for those people that are in dire needs to do something negative, like, look at the internet. If you're looking at the internet, you have a way easier access of, like, figuring things out right now. Like, we're living in a different time from when we grew up. You know, we grew up with just the TV and the streets. You guys have everything, you know, at your palm. So, like, when people say I don't know how to make money, like, yo, look at it, look it up. What can I do? You know, there's so many opportunities and take advantage of it. And that's what I leave with the youth, you know.
Thank you, Coss. So you have ConBody, ConBud right next door, and 2 other locations. Where are your locations at, Coss, in case, you know, so the people out there can find you exactly?
Yeah, we over here on 85 Delancey. We got the gym, ConBody, upstairs. We got the dispensary downstairs. We fix your body and your mind. And so we also got the 2 dispensaries on 3rd Avenue and Bruckner, and then also on Girard by Yankee Stadium, about 500 feet away from the stadium.
Off the count and making it count. What does that mean to you, Coss, when you hear that? You know, how do you continue to stay off that count and continue to make it count and be a motivation for all of us out here?
I mean, I put my head down and work, you know, for the people that see me on a day-to-day. You know, I'm out here just trying to hit the streets, or trying to communicate, or trying to travel, or trying to figure out how we could get a bigger picture done, but also putting the footwork on the ground to get things done, you know?
I agree, man. Well, Coss, man, again, thank you for your time. You know, everyone out there, today was a major milestone for me. The first day, my first episode of Off the Count podcast. And as I said in the beginning, I truly couldn't have picked anyone else than this individual sitting with me. He has, the amount of motivation he has, instilled in me, and inspiration is beyond, beyond words. I can't even really talk much about it. He has proven everything that he says that he does for formerly incarcerated individuals. I can attest to that, it's not for clout. He really stands on that. Anyone coming home, if you guys ever, looking for a job opportunity, if you hit up my guy Coss and there's a position available, trust and believe, he's gonna get you situated and he's gonna get you right. Make sure y'all follow him on all social platforms.
ConBody, ConBud, we get your body right and your mind. You already know.
And you already know, you can follow me at Made Up North NYC and at Off the Count Podcast. You already know, every day we off the count, and each day making it count. Till next time, guys. Coss, my brother, thank you, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.